Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first daily office hours that is in full HD. So you get to see us much more clearly, but you also get to see what we're sharing with you much more clearly. And this is a weekly live stream that we do in order to share our work at Stately, what we've been doing with XDate, answer your questions, and talk about general interesting things that are around and in the community. So let's start off with intros, as we do every week, so that you know who we are. My name is Laura Kalbag, and I do designer and developer relations at Stately. How about you, David?
Hey, I'm David, the founder of Stately and creator of XDate and et cetera, et cetera.
And Matt?
I'm a developer at Stately. I went to my parents over the weekend, and my dad told me that occasionally he tunes into these streams. So hello, Dad, if you're watching.
Oh, my dad does too. Hi, Dad.
Oh, nice. Okay. Both dads together.
Oh, I better let my dad know that he's letting the side down. And how about you, Farzad?
Hello, I'm Farzad, an engineer in Stately, the founder of Embed Modes.
Nice. So this week, we wanted to start off by talking about what we've been working on lately and what is coming up in the editor very soon. So who would like to kick this off?
Sure, I'll start talking about it, then hand it over to Matt. So we don't have demos to show you, but we've been working hard on some major new features in the editor right before releasing the public beta, which should be by the end of the month. One of these big features is going to be simulation. And I've been talking about this for a while. This has been one of the things that has been missing in a lot of design tools I played with, where you could make, architecture diagrams like flow charts, whatever, but actually simulating them and making sure that they work correctly. I feel like that's much more valuable and very important for, collaborating with the entire team on understanding the full app logic. So for more details on the editor mode, I'll, toss it over to Matt.
Yeah, sure. Simulation mode has been going really well. It's been my thing this week, essentially. And we've been trying to build a version of because the editor works by kind of building a schema of your app's logic. It doesn't contain any implementations at the moment, so you can't implement actions, you can't implement services yet in the editor. And so we're building a sort of version of the simulation mode where you can just sort of click around and go boom, 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 and do kind of simulate all the guards that you get just by clicking. And we're pretty proud of what we've come up with. It's just a case of kind of all the logic is working now. I'm really excited to ship it. There's just a few little design tweaks left, I think. Right, David?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. And that's kind of where we are with simulation mode. Was there any other editor things we need to give updates on?
I would say another big one is inline editing. Farzad is working on that right now. So the ability to basically treat the editor as a design tool, click inside, edit labels, just do things like that, making it feel more like a design tool. And just, some surprise things coming with the VS Code plus Stately Editor integration. I think that's going to be one of the coolest parts. So
that's been, again, another one of my jobs this week is getting that working. And well, how much do we want to talk about? We've not really, we've not talked about how much we want to keep a surprise, but
just briefly, just say that there's going to be some magic coming up.
Some magic, yeah.
With that,
I got to see a sort of preview of it this week. It all coming together, and it's kind of crazy. Like it's so cool to be able to see the whole process that we've been dreaming about coming together over the past year, just coming together. It's beautiful.
Right. And keep in mind that whatever we release for the public beta, that's just like the tip of the iceberg. We've had a couple of meetings where we just talked about the long-term roadmap for the editor, and we have a large list of forward future-facing features. That's hard to say, but that we really want to get in there. So it's going to be a lot of stuff coming.
For sure. And not only future features, but also future use cases as well, and tailoring it to different parts of your organization's teams and kind of all that sort of stuff. We're really excited to get open the floodgates, really. We're thinking of inviting another sort of final tranche of closed beta testers next week too, to get people sort of fully involved and get some final feedback before we hit our public release. And I'm feeling good about the public release too. Like this public beta that we got coming up, we're in a good position to launch in with a really, really cool offering. So can't wait.
Not to overhype it, but yeah, it's pretty cool.
I think we're allowed to hype it a little bit.
Yeah.
So this week we asked on Twitter the question, how did you first learn about state machines? You'll notice I'm not using the PDF slide presentation this week. It was too much of a nightmare previous weeks. So we're going banner mode today. And partly because we had so many fantastic responses, that's actually way too many for me to mention in this stream alone. But I thought it was really interesting how the kind of themes and groupings kind of started to emerge. So first off, from people, a lot of people learn when they're on the job, when they're working with someone or someone that they're following. And so shout outs to Tom Sherman, Steve Ruiz, and David Khurshid, who apparently is very influential in the area of learning about state machines.
Yeah, I'm actually excited that a lot of the responses were not David K. Piano, because as it turns out, people learn about state machines from all different areas of technology. So.
Oh yeah, and we got some examples here as well. So quite a few people learned from online courses, and this includes Carl Shevlin's. I mean, it is another XState related one, but Carl Shevlin did Introduction to State Machines using XState on Eggheads. That's a very popular course. And of course, David's series now of courses that are on Frontend Masters. And David, that's now been released, hasn't it?
Yes. So the raw version was available, for the last couple of months since I recorded it. However, they edited it and made it into sections and just made it all nice and formatted. So if you've been waiting to check out this course, now is the time. And I want to remind people that you don't need to watch version 1 in order to get version 2. Version 2 is meant to, largely replace version 1. It's pretty much the same stuff. There's a lot of modeling specific stuff in there, and we go more in depth in the actor model and some of the advanced features of XState. And this is also framework agnostic. I do have a React course on there, but this one is just plain vanilla JavaScript, and we're building a single big example, which is a music player. So yeah, please definitely check it out. If you don't have a subscription, the GitHub repo for this course is also free and open. It's open source, so you could just look at that if you'd like.
And they can find that on your GitHub account, can't they?
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going through it, because I did start going through the original unedited version, and it is hard going back if you keep going back to it, because you lose your place very easily. You have to track your way through the video. I was writing notes and timestamps down in my notes that I was making. So this is going to make it a lot easier to navigate. It's going to be great. Now, a lot of people learn about state machines at college or university. This seems to be a really popular option. There was actually a book recommended. Let me see if I can find which it was. I do have them saved somewhere. And I think a lot of people who study computer science end up learning about state machines.
Exactly. And the state machines that they learn about in an academic setting are very different than the ones that we talk about in like application logic settings, because these are state machines for building regular expressions and doing things like context-free languages and going into Turing machines and all of that theory. And so a lot of people I've heard say that while they did learn it at university, they didn't realize that it had any practical application, unless of course you were building some sort of parser or something like that. So
yeah, we had a couple of responses that said that essentially that they didn't actually realize the use cases for it until they were actually on the job working, and then suddenly realized how useful it would be to be using state machines. That book was How to Prove It, A Structured Approach, which is by Daniel J. Velleman, which is geared to preparing students to make the transition from solving problems to proving theorems. So that sounds quite intense, but maybe that's just because I'm not from a computer science background.
Well, neither am I, which is kind of what I was going to jump in and say. And it's interesting how, because I came to it sort of through, I think, I was trying to piece it together, but I think through sort of David's talks and stuff. And it's interesting how many people who come from a computer science background sort of hate state machines. They don't really like the idea at all. And it's like, I think the reason for that is you don't sort of see it applied in a way where it's most intuitive, you know? So when you look at a state machine and you look at a front end, you realize, okay, there's like a one-to-one mapping here between states and the states that UI can be in. And so actually, maybe if it were, I don't know, if it were introduced in a more applied way, then that would be, you might come away with a different perspective on state machines.
Yeah, and I keep pointing people towards Laura's article, the introduction to state machines and state charts, just because it's such a practical application of it, and it really takes you through all of the features of state machines and state charts. That's on our blog, and if you haven't read it, I really recommend that you read it, because it will teach you state machines and state charts in like 5 minutes. It's that good.
When people talk about how they don't find state machines practical when they were back studying in college, it kind of reminds me of, you know, how we say the same thing about mathematics, that people teach it the wrong way and you don't find it practical until you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's academic baggage is certainly an element of it. I think that I had the same thing with what I was studying, and I was studying design. We did actually have like a section on how to do web design, and I was already learning how to code by then. But they told us how to do everything in Dreamweaver with tables. And I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that old. The web had mostly moved on at that point, so it's. It was I had to lend my books to my tutor, who was great and really appreciated it. So that was cool. And finally, we had a lot of people who learned about state machines on the job. If they were in tech, some of them outside of tech. I think electronics engineering was one of the ones that people said, and from XState itself. So on the job, when someone shares the tool, they're like, "Oh, what is this?" And that made me think of your response, Farzad, about how you learned about state machines.
Yeah, I think the first time that I thought about or read about a state machine was reading this book called Game Programming Patterns that has an entire chapter dedicated to state machines or the state pattern of the design pattern book, and how you kind of use that to model different variations of the behavior of like a heroine or a hero in the game.
Oh, that's cool. We talked a lot before about how gaming is such a huge area for state machines. Would you recommend that book for other people?
I definitely recommend that book for everybody who's not even writing a game. It's an eye-opening. It's a collection of eye-opening techniques, you know, and practical ways of just coding and programming.
Yeah, it's interesting how much we can learn from other areas as well. So we don't keep like creating new solutions that have already existed in different fields.
Exactly. And the book is, the online version is free. You can just visit gameprogrammingpatterns.com and read it for free there. It's not even a long book. It's like less than 50 pages or something, or maybe a little bit more.
Oh, that is really cool. And talking of things that we can learn from, Matt, you've been showing some cool new stuff off this week.
I have, yes. I've been kind of playing around with for a long time, actually, playing with a sort of idea of interactive tutorials with XState, because I feel like XState is really sort of set up to utilize kind of visual learning in a way that other state machine tools aren't, you know, because XState and state charts are inherently visual. And so I've sort of played around with something last night, and I've come up with this, which is, I'll zoom in a little bit just for the benefit of the stream. In fact, maybe I'll go like this. Yeah, go full screen. What this is essentially a kind of a tutorial that asks you to solve a problem. On the left-hand side, we've got some comments here, and the goal is to create a number input that you can adjust by clicking on the plus and minus buttons. And so here, if you click on the plus and minus buttons, they kind of don't do anything at the moment, but they are connected up with this state machine on the left. So you can change this number to 12, and then it changes to 12 over this right-hand side. And this is kind of what we're doing with state machines in our job all the time, is we're using them to power UIs. And learning state machines kind of on their own, this is kind of what I was getting at before about it being applied. You know, you always want to see the application of what you're building and what you're learning. And this kind of puts the cart before the horse, and it kind of allows you to just start going and start powering a UI straight away with the state machine. So what we want to do is clicking on the plus button will fire the increment event at the state machine. So we can solve that by going on increments. We can actions. I'm going to grab assign from up here, assign context event. And we're going to go return num is context.num plus 1. So what that's going to do is every time the increment event is fired, it's going to increment the number in the context by 1. And when we do that, it's working. Hey! This is similar to some ideas I sort of had before, which was like a kind of set of tasks, let's say, which would tell you if you got your state machine right. But this, I feel, is kind of, maybe they can be combined in the future, but this is very tactile. It's very obvious when it's working. And it's really, really nice to work with. This is using Sandpack by Code Sandbox. And it was really quick to throw together. It only took about 2 hours last night. There's 2 tutorials that are open here, the loading indicator animation and the number input. And I'm hoping to maybe sort of build on this a little bit more and add more tutorials to these. But mostly, I would love your feedback. So you can go to this at xstate-tutorials.vercel.app, and you can start playing around with the couple of tutorials that I've got here. And I've also created little intro and solution videos just in Loom up here for each sort of tutorial. And there's also docs here, links to docs that will help you solve the problem. So again, it's a free way of like learning XState by example, which I think is a really, really powerful paradigm and something that I think we should put more focus in the future. And hopefully I can contribute to these kind of as we're building our other things too, because they're very, very quick for me to put together. But that's it, XState tutorials.
Absolutely love it so much. I can't wait to see what we do with this, and I can see us integrating this more fully into the docs as well, and so that you'll be able to find everything really quickly. And yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah. Now I'm envisioning the visualizer as well, like just turning one of the machines you create into a tutorial and then sharing that. That would be amazing.
Totally.
Yeah. And next up, we were still on the topic of learning about XState and what we're working on at Stately. David, you were mentioned earlier on the Discord that you were thinking about perhaps starting to do some workshops.
Yeah, so this is actually not a new ask. Ever since I started Stately, there have been companies just asking for mentorship and consulting sessions and things like that. And also the need for education, which, we all know is one of the biggest needs in the XState and Stately community. And so what I thought up of was probably in the future just creating 2 types of workshops. The first one would be just like free and open workshops for anyone who wants to learn the basics of XState, all of its main features. Just have like a community workshop over Zoom or whatever. And just have that open source and free to the public. And then for more specialized use cases, for companies who have something specific that they're trying to do with XState or wanting to get into the more advanced features, we could have, company specific workshops that we offer. So if this sounds interesting to you, please let us know in the Discord or, DM me or whatever. It's something that I think we would really like to do because one of the biggest focuses this year is going to be on education. Like you saw with Matt's tutorials, the blog that Laura and Farzad have been working on. We're really going to try to accelerate, just teaching the world about state machine, state charts, and event-driven architecture, software modeling, and all of that. So, yeah.
Lots of big plans for this year.
Yeah.
And also, after we were so excited last week in the office hours and we talked about going to AgentConf and perhaps being able to meet some people in person there, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on who you are and where you're at, AgentConf is now moving online to be a virtual conference. And they're going to be hosting that, I think, over the space of a few weeks, split it up into sort of few-hour chunks so that it's easier for people to attend from all over the world, and also because of COVID and the restrictions that are in Austria right now. David, do you have any more insider information on that as you'll be speaking?
So I'm still not sure which day I'm going to be speaking, but we do know it's going to be like either late January, early February. But we are still planning on, making that announcement of the open beta for the editor during that conference. So we're going to be sure to share it with you through whichever means we can, whether it's through AgentConf or putting it up on YouTube or something like that. Just because we're so excited to get it out to you. So yeah, if you do have a ticket, I still recommend that you attend. They will send swag boxes out physically, or they're not going to physically deliver it; they're going to deliver it physically. You know what I mean? But yeah, so it's still going to be a good time, even though it's virtual, which is sad. But yeah, in this climate, it's necessary.
Yeah,
Gutted.
that's
I still haven't met Laura in person. Still haven't met David in person. And, haven't met Farzan in person either. Like, this is crazy. We had like this lovely retreat planned that we were going on, but
yeah,
we're this year probably.
Yeah, he's
It'll
hoping
happen.
2022 is the year that COVID starts getting out of the way. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Maybe the reason we're so productive as a team is because we have never met each other in person.
Yeah, still trying to impress each other. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know if that's going to be even greater if we meet in person. I always think how we're this productive already when we're there in person without having to communicate via text boxes. We're going to be really quick.
No, we'll get complacent. We'll get too comfortable. We'll be like, David's fine. He doesn't need it.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have anything that they wanted to share this week, or anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask in the comments?
Let's see. I really like Cedric's comment here. What's cool is Stately is not just a simple project; it's a whole ecosystem. Yeah, we've got lots of irons in the fire, lots of things coming up in the future that we're not even ready to talk about yet. And yeah, there's many long-term plans happening pretty much all the time, and we don't let any idea go. We always let it sit and percolate, and maybe we'll get back to it at some point. But yeah, I really like this comment.
Right. Yeah. And I want to reiterate that the stuff that we're creating for Stately is meant to be useful for the entire team. So this isn't just hey, anyone who uses XState, we're building tools for you. It's really, we're going beyond XState and using the XState technology to make things that are useful for everyone. And that's why we're so excited. And that's why, the ecosystem is so active, because there are people in the Stately community who do not use XState, or, maybe know about XStates, but they're not using it directly in their job, but they still find the idea of modeling state in their applications to be really useful. So those are the people who we want to, get ideas from and talk to.
Absolutely. Well then, on that note about how cool it is that Stately is a whole ecosystem, we will wrap up for this week. We will see you again the same time next week, and look forward to catching up with you then.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.